What is so true oftentimes in the spiritual world, and that is, it's not so much what you do that defines who you are. It's a matter of finding a deeper sense of who you are within yourself. So the big question isn't so much what I do and is what I'm doing right. It's who am I? Mm-hmm. That's another way to say it. That's the big thing in the spiritual world.
When life throws a challenge at you, one thing is certain: to find a resolution for every issue, every problem, for everybody, there's more than one way. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the More Than One Way podcast. I'm Whitney Ross, and with me is my good friend, Thom Rasnick.
Hey, Whitney.
Hey, Thom. How's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Good. Glad to hear that. In our last conversation, that would be episode 20, if you're looking for which one, we had a guest with us that began a conversation with us about asking for help. And we felt like that went really, really well. And we were excited to have Michaela with us. And she really started us down the path of a conversation that we felt like we wanted to go a little deeper, just to continue the conversation, because there was so much.
Yeah. I remember specifically one part of talking with Michaela, and we were, part of going out and seeking help for many of us in our day and age is just to kind of have a resolution over an issue that we have or something that's just bothering us going on. And then once we resolve that issue or fix whatever it is or seem to fix whatever it is that we're trying to have fixed, we kind of go back about life and get back out there. And that's much of what can be part of what we consider therapy or psychology, is just kind of patching you up, getting you back out in the game so that you can live your life. And that's a great thing. Mm-hmm. That can be a very helpful thing, help you to be a better worker, help you to be a better husband or wife or somebody in a relationship. All that stuff is great. But as we continue to talk about asking for help and circling down into part of what's so hard about it is that we show our vulnerability and that stuff. I don't know if you remember this. We brought up Adam and Eve again,
right.
to try to get at what is so true oftentimes in the spiritual world, and that is, it's not so much what you do that defines who you are. It's a matter of finding a deeper sense of who you are within yourself. So it's the big question isn't so much what I do and is what I do and what I'm doing right. It's who am I? Mm. That's another way to say it. That's the big thing in the spiritual world. And when I said that to Michaela, she said, yeah, and when you find that true, authentic self, something to that degree, that's when the magic happens. And I thought, yeah, that's right. From a spiritual perspective, that's when we start to get at what life is all about for us. So that's where I kind of wanted to jump in, if that's all right with you.
It sounds great. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so it's, so the big thing, who am I? And it's been, and once again, the question's been asked since there's been people around to ask it. In the scriptural world, in the Judeo-Christian spiritual tradition, there's going to be a general sense of what human nature is. Okay. And this is kind of setting the tone for like, who am I? And simply put, our best way to do it would be to tell stories, but I'm just going to come right out and tell you, simply put, what he says is that we're a mix between biology and spirituality. So we're made from the dust of the earth is the metaphor. Mm-hmm. And then we have the breath of God blown into us, or we're made in the image of God. Those are the two metaphors that are used to try to say, yes, we're biology, and we're made up of all the things that we see within the world, and we have all the stuff that biology wants and asks of life. But we're also more than that. There's another part to us. We're spirit too. Mm-hmm. So we're spirit and we're biology. We're spirit and we're matter. And that would be an overarching way to understand human beings. Or another way to say it is we are made in the image of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're of the mindset we're only biology and that's all we are, my guess is you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. My guess is you'd turn it off right now, because this world is going to say no. That's just a part of who we are,
right?
Okay, and so went throughout the spiritual world, the spiritual way that people have developed this stuff. To get to the 4th century. Okay, so we're in the 4th century now. So we've gone from, the head spinning time frame. So here's the general way, and here's another general way that this one guy named Augustine said. Augustine, before there was Madonna, before there was Adele, before there was Cher,
one name
celebrity, right? Yeah, there was Augustine, and he was, way back in the 5th century, and he says this about human nature, this about what it means to be human, or who am I? He says, "You have made us for yourself, O God, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in you. You have made us for yourself, O God, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in you." Okay? So it's where we're going to find that sense of self, where we're going to find that sense of peace, where we're going to find a deeper sense of what it means to be who each of us is in God. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. But I think that's a challenge.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, how do we... It sounds good, but how do we do that?
Yeah, how do we understand that, right? And once again, in our day and age, that tends to fall more to the side of biology.
Right.
Even if we are somebody who's interested in the religious, spiritual stuff, we're still going to tend to fall more to the side of who I am is made up of atoms and all the stuff that our biology is made up of. And sometimes, like I said, we'll just stop there if that's enough. But if it's not enough, then that's when this stuff comes in. And so to be in God is to be in the image of God. It's to be a reflection of God. It's to be in connection with this deeper source of life that we call God. A spiritual energy, a spiritual presence that we call God. And so way back in the 5th century, he's saying, that's what we're looking for, is that deep connection. And where that deep connection is where we'll find our true self. Now, how do you prove that, right?
Yeah.
Right? So just let's just stick with me, and
okay.
we'll see if this unfolds. Because in a way, once we start talking about this, it's going to be more about your experience than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be any way for me to prove it or us to prove it or us to show it. We can give examples and throw out quotes like that and see how it sticks with you, see how it hits you and where you go with that.
Yeah, because everybody's unique.
Everybody's unique.
Yeah.
That's right. So we're still in kind of the general category of what it is to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And then it moves into... we'll take it a little further down the road into the 15th century. And there's a woman named Teresa of Avila. She's this woman who lived in a convent and did a lot of stuff around prayer and trying to do what it is Augustine was talking about. Connect at a deeper and deeper level with however it is you're going to understand God. How do we talk about God, right?
Yeah.
Okay? So that's what her whole life was kind of going to be geared toward that. And she came up with this thing that was called Interior Castle. She wrote a book called The Interior Castle. Mm-hmm. And it was, in the Interior Castle, there's 7 levels of 7 different castles.
Okay.
That are deepening and deepening and deepening inside of yourself into this relationship with God. And when you go further and further in, you find more and more out about yourself. More and more more and more about what your true nature is, what your true desires are, what your higher aspirations as a human being can be.
Mm-hmm.
And by higher aspirations, what I mean by finding the things like compassion and kindness and love
Mm-hmm.
and generosity, those things that make us exquisitely human. But in order to do that, you have to kind of slog through what she calls the reptiles, and in the end, what they, what would that be, right? It would be all the opposite of that stuff: the greed and the envy and all the stuff that can just trap us from finding that deeper part of who and what we are as human beings.
And we're so, we're so trained to look outside, to make a plan and take action and take steps. And, to think about that inward journey like that is, that's just mysterious. It
is mysterious. And the thing is, see, it's not that any of those outward things are bad. They're good.
Right.
It's good to do those things. It's just from this perspective, it's don't over-identify with any of them. Don't over-identify with your job or with your plan or with the outcome of what it is that you think you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it will always leave you wanting more, is what they're going to say. It will if we're always looking outside,
mm-hmm.
then we're going to be insatiable.
Wow.
That's what they're going to say. And once again, I have to look at my own life. You have to look at your life.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at life and say, does that ring true? Okay, so I'll give you an example from my life then. So I grew up in a town in Florida. I was born in Miami, moved when I was 6 months to a little town called Jupiter, Tequesta, Florida, which is just north of West Palm Beach. Lived there till I was 15, and then at 15 we moved to West Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
In Jupiter, how I wanted to see myself was I was really cool. Okay, I wanted to identify. If somebody said, "Well, who are you?" I would say, "Well, I'm cool." That's who I am. And then if people are, well, how do you know you're cool? Well, I mean, I got the hair, and I can play sports really well, and I'm a pretty decent surfer, and all the things that Jupiter, Florida said, this is what it means to be cool, right? Now, deep down, if I were to, on my own, sitting there and think, oh, there's got to be more than that. But at this point in time, up to the age of 15, mm-hmm. that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved, okay? And the idea, what cool was in West Palm Beach, Florida? 30 minutes down the road. Cool was having really short hair. Strike one against me, okay? Listening to country music, strike two. Going out with guns and pit bulls and boar hunting.
Wow.
Yeah. No, half an hour down the road and 1,000,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the beach, nothing to do, a little bit with sports, but really mostly that was the world. And that's what it meant to be cool. So all of a sudden, this outward definition of who I am right there gets challenged.
Yeah.
And okay, if I'm going to be cool, do I have to be like that? Well, what happened to that?
Right.
What happened to Jupiter cool?
Yeah.
That's how fragile it is. That's how easy it can change just based on where you go.
Yeah.
Right. So
even not that far away.
I hesitate to say this, but the show Succession, I'm sure people have seen this. It's this big show. HBO put it out. It's about somebody who's along the lines of a Rupert Murdoch type guy.
Okay. Is
kind of the patriarch of this multinational family / corporation.
Gotcha.
That is involved with the communication world. And he's got 4 kids. One basically is just out from the start of being the one who's going to succeed him as the chairman of this multinational corporation. Mm-hmm. And the rest, it's a 4-season show, and all the the episodes are in some way or another about which of these three kids are going to be the one that becomes the new him.
Okay.
All right. So everything in these three kids' life is about how do I be him, even though they hate him.
Yeah.
Because he's a real not hands-on kind of dad. Let's just put it that way. Right. You know, so he spends all his time working. He spends all his time in that world, and he's created an empire.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Old story in many ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Which of the three kids can best and convince the dad that they're the ones that are going to be next in line, right? Yeah. And they spend their whole life after that. Okay, that would be a way of the exact opposite of what we're talking about. That would be a way of trying to find your identity outside of yourself, and in this instance, it's finding it outside of themselves to please the dad.
Gotcha.
Right? Similar to me moving from Jupiter to West Palm Beach and saying, well, what does it mean to be, how do I be cool here?
Right.
Right? If I'm going to, and it's like, if it's outside of me, then I'll never find me.
Yeah, you're chasing it.
Just constantly chasing it. And that's the thing about our society being so outward focused. And what these spiritual people have always said is, know that if all you're going to do is chase it outside of you, you'll be insatiable. You'll never get enough. There'll never be enough.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never find it. Even if one of those people succeeded the dad, it wouldn't be fulfilling. It might be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You might get some stuff done, and that's all. Once again, all that stuff's cool. But to get to who am I? This spiritual question, who am I at my deepest level? Outside of you is not going to do it. You see, and I think, so we got Teresa Avila in the 15th century, and then Thomas Merton comes along in the 20th century and starts trying to get at this, and he coins the phrase to some degree, I think he coined it, true self and false self.
Okay.
True self and false self. So the false self isn't the bad self. The false self would be me wanting to be cool and identify with cool. Or these kids from the Succession world wanting to be their dad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The false self would be the provisional self, the incomplete self. The part of me that says, when somebody comes up to me and says, hey, so tell me who you are. And I say, well, I'm a Episcopal priest, and I'm a father, and I'm a husband, and right?
Mm-hmm.
All those things are true, but they're not whole. They're not complete. They're not all of me.
Right.
Right. And that's what's true for. So he's going to say, there's this part of us that's deep within us that's unconcerned with all that other stuff. That's of God. That nothing can touch. How do you prove that, right? Right? You have to experience that,
mm-hmm.
right? Does that make sense? So that this is the trail. This is how this has gone.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting that seems to be a thread throughout history where people have, in whatever way, tried to craft some kind of framework for people to be able to start that journey or understand that or see its existence even.
Yeah.
I think in some ways probably people don't even see that or are not aware of it. Like you said, if you're pretty biology minded, it may not even come into your thoughts.
Right. And so these are people who've gone through it, who try to give landmarks, give you little markers to say, yeah, what you're experiencing now, that's okay. You're on the right trail. Which I think, once again, is developed into, on one level, therapy.
Mm-hmm.
On another level, we'd call depth psychology or spiritual direction, or that deeper part of life that these ancient authors tried to write about and get us to reflect on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it only strikes us when it strikes us. That's the thing. If
Right.
your life is going on good and fine and you're all fine by it, great. Then this probably will never pop up. It's only when it's like, wait a minute.
When you hit that point
right.
of...
I just moved from this place where the beach and long hair and this is what it was all about. And now I'm in this place. Who am I in that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I never would have asked that question if I'd stayed. Right? So it's a lot of times it's something has to pop up.
Something happens to
and
cause
it changes the way that you see it. Right? In Succession, the dad dies. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched that. Sorry about that. The dad dies and it throws everything into chaos, right?
Right.
So he can no longer pick who's the one. And one of the things I didn't say before that he did, which isn't going to win him Dad of the Year, is he'd dangle it before each of them. You're really the one that's probably going to come after me. And then you're really the one, he'd say to two boys and a girl. You're the one that's really closest. You're the one. And then when he didn't like what they were doing, you are, he'd say just crazy things like, you are not serious people. You'll never make it in this world. And then one time he says to his oldest son, how does he put it? He says, what have you ever had in your entire life that I didn't give you?
Whew.
Right. Yeah. Right. Ouch. Right.
Yeah.
So how's he going to figure out who am I within all this? Right. So it can get derailed so easily.
Yeah.
It can get derailed, this path, this quest. But like I said, starting from Augustine, what he's saying is, in the end, this is what we're really after, is to be okay with ourselves as ourselves.
Going back to the Adam and Eve story, it's being okay without the fig leaf.
That's right. Being okay with whatever it is that you're trying to hide behind.
Yeah.
To make you feel like you're okay. All right. And as we keep opening this up, you can look at our day and age where different ways to try to get at how do I define myself are popping up all the time. In the 60s and 70s, this thing called the Myers-Briggs. Did you ever hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Businesses have started using that now because they recognize, well, what do you think? Why?
I think it helps place categories around the way people behave or operate or interact with each other. I mean, it kind of helps guess how people might interact in a group together.
Yeah. So even business started to see everybody processes things a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just take a look at who we got on our team here and how they might generally kind of process things. And that's a way to try to say, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
The only downside would be is if I over-identify with that, and then that's all I am, once again.
Right.
I'm just 4 initials based on the Myers-Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But once again, this is the spiritual world is going to say, no, you're more than that. And another big popular one right now is the Enneagram, which is based on numbers 1 through 9. And each of the numbers that you can identify with will, once again, give you a picture of how you go about it on some level, in a general way, experience and process the world. Mm-hmm. But the people who really work at it the best that I know of say, you're not your number. That's just how you lead. That's just usually how you go about living your life.
Okay.
But all of those things are in service to who am I? As we try more and more and more to unlock the mystery of what it is to be me and to be you. Right? Because we are this infinite mystery, beautiful, messy mystery. And now the newest one that I've heard of, and you tell me if you've heard of this, and I'm talking a ton, but here it is the left brain, right brain stuff.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Mm-hmm.
What have you heard about that?
I guess what I've heard just in kind of quantifying the two is that the right brain is kind of the more creative side and the left brain is the more kind of analytical planning side. And that, maybe some people are more right-brained or left-brained that might kind of give some clue to how they might interact or work or create.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And the ideal is in service of wholeness is with the corpus callosum that connects our two hemispheres of our brain, the left and right brain. The ideal is that they're in conversation with each other. They're working together.
Yeah.
That we take, but as a society as a whole, which do you think we favor?
Probably left brain.
Right. Okay. So we're because we're so far on the left brain. The left brain is kind of the orderly. How did you put it? Analytical, strategic, calculating. Okay, and worrying. Okay, it's going to do all that stuff, and a lot of times we think that's all there is to us.
Right. It's
just one big massive get stuff done. Think about this. Do the next thing. Make another plan. Evaluate this. I like this. I don't like that. Okay, but what people who research this is saying once again is that's just one half of your life. And the other half is the right brain that's much more in the moment, big picture, experiencing everything is interconnected, right? And it's when both of those things are working that we're at our whole truest, wholest self. And you want to hear a story about that, or do we have
I'd love
time
to.
for a story about that?
Let's do it.
Okay, so so TED Talks, are those things still, do people still listen to those things?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're still around.
Yeah, okay.
You're still doing the conference and stuff.
So. Okay. Well, this one was I think it was about 15 years ago. There's a woman, and it was I think they said this is one of the first ever viral videos.
Okay.
Talks. And it was a woman, Jill Bolte Taylor, and she was a brain researcher. Okay, she's a brain scientist, and she worked to try to understand what's going on in our brains. Well, our brains as our processing instrument. So one day she woke up and she said she was kind of having a bit of pain on the left side of her head, and she just kind of blew it off and didn't think too much of it. And she got on her exercise bike and she started exercising. It was one where you use your hands and your feet. I can't remember what she called it. And she's using it, and she's looking at her hand, and she's seeing it. It looks like kind of fuzzy and like claw-like it's not like her hand at all. And then the pain in her head got more, so much so that she had to stop. And when the pain started happening even more, she found herself kind of almost losing sense of what was going on, but falling into a greater sense of kind of the beauty of what she was living at the moment. As weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
So what she found out was happening. She was having a stroke.
Oh,
and she had an aneurysm on the left side of her brain. Okay, so that meant that she was experiencing the world through her right side, and then every now and again, her left side would click in, so she could say, "Wow, I just experienced that," or something along those lines. And so what she experienced when her left side would shut down was just that, the interconnectedness of everything. She said 37 years of just drama and memories and poor decisions fading away, gone.
Wow.
In just an instant, as her right brain just kind of kept her in the moment and said, "Look at this beauty that's all around you and that you're in." And she said she affectionately called it La La Land. So she was just in this beautiful, carefree place. But then her left brain would click back on, and there'd be the pain, and her left brain would say to her, this is the way she's doing it on TED Talk, "Hey, we're in trouble here. You're having a stroke.
Yeah.
you're in trouble. You're a brain scientist.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. You got to get help. You got to get help."
Oh my goodness.
And then she'd get sucked back into the brain where, "Look at this, how beautiful it is." And she said she walked over to the phone to try to call, and she put her arm on the wall, and she couldn't tell where her arm ended and the wall began because it was all just pixelated together. And that's the way the right brain sees it. It's
more in images
and colors and pictures. And it's that kind of intelligence. And, The organized, get help, get somebody to, part was panicking on some level. Well, long story short, obviously she got help. But what she said was, as a brain researcher, she had to stop doing that because she forgot it all. She would have to have started all over again with the research that she'd done and all that kind of stuff because the memory side of her brain kind of took it all away. Well, now she's got a whole nother life though, or she can go and talk about the different experiences of the hemispheres,
right?
How the hemispheres of our brain process and show us the different experience of living, right? And we're a highly rational, left brain centered society, and so usually we'll discount the right brain,
right?
They might even say, well, it's just for artists or, hippies.
Quit daydreaming.
Right. Quit daydreaming.
Yeah.
Right. But what she's saying is, no, if you're going to find the wholeness of your true self, we need that side of ourselves too. That part that connects us to everything else. That's one of the big things about meditation. Meditation's trying to calm down the left brain, and another way to see the left brain interpreter, the one that's going about making meaning, telling you what everything is, right? Yeah. So for a certain amount of time, we're trying to calm that down so that we can experience a larger part of what it means to be alive and human.
And you're saying meditation helps do that.
It does help. Helps me.
Mm-hmm.
It quiets down the monkey mind, the mind that wants to constantly calculate and evaluate and judge. Nothing wrong with those things, unless that's all we do. Right. Is what the spiritual life is going to say. And if we over-identify with it, then from this perspective, we never answer the question, well, who am I really? Right? So how many centuries is that? We're trying to get at.
Yeah.
Right? People trying to answer this mysterious question of who are we as human beings? And then even more specifically, who am I? Because we're each just a little bit different.
Well, and I think it comes back to, we talked about vulnerability and the idea of, how incredible that you have someone who's a brain scientist having a stroke and able to think about themselves having a stroke to the point that they could share the story afterwards. It's just mind-blowing.
It is.
But when she's talking about that right brain, the way you described it, the idea of her arm kind of fading into the wall and that kind of stuff, that could be frightening.
Yeah.
That's not a comforting thinking about having a stroke and the way that she had it, and you're talking about La La Land, and there's some beauty in that. But at the same time, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And especially as we think about being vulnerable enough to learn who we are, that takes some courage to want to do that.
Yes, it does. And from this perspective, so once again, it's how are we going to try to talk about this? So if we're in the left brain, right brain way to talk about it, it's the left brain that's afraid. Because the left brain wants to think it knows.
Okay.
Right? So I know everything, and I'm going to fit everything into my understanding in the way that I know. Right. Rather than the right brain part is going to be, no, stay open to life and stay open to the moment because you don't know.
Yeah.
Or what Paul said from our spiritual tradition is we see in a mirror dimly. We see in a mirror dimly. So we see, but we only see in part. So stay open and just stay humble. It's our left brain that gets afraid because our left brain wants to control on some level.
Control. Yeah.
Understandable. Completely understandable. But in the end, what they're trying to get at is have us ask questions of ourselves, like, okay, if I'm going to try to answer the question, who am I? Would I say, am I my job? Am I my body? Am I my clothes? Am I my thoughts? Am I my, you fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And what the tradition's going to say, yes, but you're more. Yes, but you're more. To try to get you to go down, down, down into where you just experience yourself as being alive. You just are. You just get to be here. And can you enter into life from that place? Not, I have to prove myself like the Succession kids.
Yeah.
And the only way I can prove myself and prove that I'm worthwhile is to become like my dad.
Have to be doing something.
Yes, to show.
Right.
Right? Nothing wrong with doing. But from this perspective, there's a lot wrong when I over-identify with my doing and see my self as just that. So the bottom line is yes, but more. Yes, but more.
Which is, I mean, that part of it is very intriguing. You know, when you think about the achieving side and, you know, that restlessness that you spoke about and the idea of going after, it seems like that there's no ultimate satisfaction in that. I mean, there's always something more, you know, that you're chasing or more you could have, or, you know, how much is enough. But on the other side, saying that there's more there to that kind of other side of things. It's interesting that it kind of plays on both sides.
Yeah. There's a different way of understanding more.
Right.
It's like if I just get more awards, or if I just get more, once again, and this is all in the service of not good and bad, but identifying who I am. Right. So the more really from this perspective is letting go of identifying with all those things that you're identifying with.
Right.
Or over-identifying with them. Right? And it can go on and on. It can go on and on, the questions that you ask yourself to try to get at this more.
Well, I think that's where so much art has come from. I mean, just as people trying to express what has happened or what they've sensed, whether it be music or painting or creatively, just trying to somehow, how can I show you what I've seen?
Yes, what I'm experiencing. I think that's great. You know, it's like Monet, you know, in the expressionist that whole world. When I look at that, I don't see that.
Yeah.
But man, thank God he sees that and can paint it that way.
Shows you something different. Yeah.
Yeah. It is exactly like that. And that the truth of the matter with all this, and to add to the more, is what's infinitely interesting is how you experience the world. Because you're experiencing it different than I am.
Right.
And if the assumption is everybody's having the same experience, that's not my belief and or experience. That's the other part that people are trying to get at is that's why you need to be you and true to you, because then you have that unique perspective to bring to the world.
Right.
If I'm just, like the Succession kids, if I'm just copying my dad, well, we've already had your dad here.
Right.
We don't need any more
We don't need
of
another
him.
one. Yeah.
We need you. That's another way that this is just going to try to get at it. We need you to be you and nobody else. Because who else is going to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope you stayed with us through through that conversation. That was a lot. There's a lot there, and I think it just leaves me with questions.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what you kind of alluded to, the idea that maybe there's more questions and more questions and more questions that we ask ourselves, you know, and we just would encourage you, if you have decided to start that journey, to just to embrace it and look for others around you who can support you as you do that, and share with others what you find, so that we can see what you see.
Yeah, and send in your questions.
We would love to hear that, and we'd love to hear what you're thinking.
It's important.
All right, guys, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than One Way podcast, brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Practice in Knoxville, Tennessee. We really appreciate your time and would love to hear your feedback. You can reach us by emailing hello@morethanonewaypod.com, or you can connect with us on social media using the handle @morethanonewaypod. If you found this episode helpful, we hope that you'll share it with your friends, with your family, with people you work with all the people who you know. Thank you and take care.